No, no. It's just like I told you with the Sanrio stuff. It wasn't me. Not only do I not collect Sailor Moon stuff, I definitely wouldn't buy a 12-inch topless Sailor Venus figure. I mean, who would even buy something like that? I'm gonna have to call you back. Well, howdy, party people and space cadets, and welcome to the Galactic Happy Hour. I'm your host, Spider Island Slim, and on this week's episode, we will be talking about something that is very near and dear to my heart, and that is Masters of the Universe style action figures. Anyone who grew up in the 80s, like myself, can definitely remember Masters of the Universe or He-Man fever. It was all the rage for a while, and most 80s kids loved it. And in the wake of He-Man came just a slew of Masters of the Universe style action figures. And you notice I said Masters of the Universe style action figures and not knockoffs. I actually don't like the term knockoff or using the term knockoff, especially here. To me, it would be something like Strongman and the Commanders of the Galaxy, or just something that's a blatant ripoff. Whereas nothing on this list, I believe, is a ripoff of He-Man. I'm sure things came out here to cash in on Masters of the Universe, but no ripoffs. And that being said, let's begin with number 5, which actually is a total cheat, because this action figure line, not only is it not Masters of the Universe like, probably not even inspired by He-Man, but it's just one I really wanted to find an excuse to talk about. And that is Secret of the Ninja from 1984 by Remco. And let me tell you, speaking of crazes and manias and the such, in the early 80s, if you were a kid in the early 80s, more likely you had ninja fever. And I certainly had me a bad case of ninja fever. And what Secret of the Ninja was a line of action figures, probably about that 5.5-inch scale, like Masters of the Universe, if not 5.5, very close, of martial arts themed warriors. And even though they often had special features and gimmicks and such, which, again, as I've said before, I'm not a huge fan of when the toys actually kind of have like power actions, I still loved these figures. So there were 13 in all, according to FigureRealm.com, but the back of the box only has 6 figures, so I really don't know what the case is there. And let me tell you, Remco Toys, talk about an unsung hero of the toy universe, especially in the 80s. You often think about the big boys, your Hasbro, your Mattel, your Kenner, but I think Remco is right there beneath those. Definitely deserves more respect than it gets as a great toy company. Anyways, back to Secret of the Ninja. So the Secret of the Ninja figures, they were great. They came with tons of weapons and accessories and just represented something I'd never seen before in toys and figures. I personally had the Golden Shaolin Monk, the Ninja, the Kung Fu Master, and the Thai Kickboxer. And I particularly loved figures, and I know this is going to sound strange, but figures and toy lines that had no mythology. So I could just kind of come up with my own story for these guys, these characters. And I just had a ton of fun with these, especially the Ninja. I had a lot of fun with the Ninja, and I think the Golden Monk were probably my 2 favorites. Interestingly, when I was doing research for this episode, looked on the back of the box, and I guess just Remco being smart, because the back of the box has not only the Secret of the Ninja toys for sale, it had a bunch of other figures from other lines as well. I thought that was neat. Alright, next. So number 4 on the list is an unusual case, because it's easily my least favorite toy line on this list. Not to say there's anything wrong with it, because this kind of goes back to what I was saying about not all of the figures being poor quality or knockoffs, because this was a very high quality toy line, and that is 1982's The Lost World of the Warlord by Remco. And again, back to Remco and just the great quality and stuff they put out. Unsung hero of the 80s. Unsung hero. So, this one is based something on a long-running DC comic book called The Warlord, though two of the characters actually came from another comic, I'm assuming by DC. But this was another, or not another, this was kind of the first on this list I'll talk about of fantasy style. And really kind of He-Man-esque with the big muscular bodies and the 5.5-inch scale, but really just a really cool looking toy line. And it started with 3 main figures, then expanded to 6, then all the way to 13. And they had same body, different heads, and different paint. Kind of all of the He-Man school as well. And the reason I say this is one of my least favorite lines on the list is because I really just didn't know that much about it. I only actually even had one figure. And I remember I got him because I was sick one day, and my dad went out shopping or something, and he came back with the figure for me to cheer me up. And it did. And it was a great figure. And that was Mikola. Or Mikola? I'm sure Mikola. He was a good guy. I just found out during research. But he looked like a bad guy. He actually kind of looks like a vampire wrestler. And I think that's probably why I liked him so much. He was a pretty cool design. So the really interesting thing about the line, and the reason it made it to the list, is because of what it spawned. And the Lost World of the Warlord did not have its own dedicated villains. What Remco did was create a whole new character line that kind of piggybacked off of this line, and those figures were on the back of the box, and the warlords were on the back of that box, and it was just kind of a mixture of the two different lines, which was very cool. And that line was Warrior Beast, and I'll talk a bit about that. When will I talk a bit about that? Next. Now, Warrior Beast. Now we're really getting into the meat of things. 1982 by Remco as well, of course. And as I said, they were kind of a sister line to the Warlord line, but these were amazing figures. Great quality, awesome designs. And as just a little monster kid like myself, I just went crazy just for all these different monsters. I personally had the Hydrus, Snake Man, the Wolf Warrior, and I guess it's Guana. It says Guana. That's not really a very good name. But those, and they were essentially kind of the fantasy style action figures, 5.5 scale, with the big muscular bodies, but these were all monsters and animal type people. Let me tell you about the Wolf Warrior. I loved the Wolf Warrior, because back at that time, when you couldn't just find monster toys all over the place, or like classic monster type toys, I would have to pretend other toys were other characters and other things. And that Wolf Warrior, he was my go-to werewolf figure for a long, long time. Let me tell you, if I was ever kind of playing spooky type stuff and I needed a werewolf, Wolf Warrior was it. That was a great figure. But looking back, I have to say my favorite in the line was probably Snake Man. I mean, he was super cool. And I loved the whole Snake Men kind of line for Masters of the Universe as well. And this guy, and he might have even predated that. If he did come out in 82, I do think that does predate the Snake Men for Masters. But either way, he just played right alongside them really well. And he had a cool feature that none of the Master Snake Men had, and that was an attachable long tail. And it was like thick and sturdy and helped him stand up well. That is a great figure. I hope he made it. Hope he's still somewhere in storage, because I would love to have him right there on one of those shelves. All right, and on that, I think we should take a commercial break.
Here are a few words about Levi's jeans and cords.
Levi's.
And we're back, and it's time for the horoscope of the week. And this week's horoscope goes to Taurus. Taurus, Your Bucky O'Hare meets the Toxic Avenger fan fiction will be a huge success. So keep at it. All right, let's keep going. Number 2, and this is a line I've talked about before on an earlier episode, but as I said before, can't assume you've watched every episode, and that is Nightmare Warriors from 1983 by the Multi-Toys Corporation. And the Nightmare Warriors were essentially 6 skeleton guys. Most of them were based on historical figures. Some were just kind of generic historical figures, or historical kind of character things. But they were just awesome skeleton type men. Great villains, could really work across a number of different play styles. I mean, you could have put them in Thundercats, He-Man, all over the place. But there were 6 figures in all, including Spartacus, Sir Lancelot, Geronimo, and Captain Kidd, and each came with a weapon. And the unique thing about them is they're skeletons. They have on belts, boots, hats, and capes, if they wore capes, but nothing else. So it makes you wonder, were they buried naked, but in boots? Boots and belts? Because you would think that those would have rotted away too if they were. Really makes you think. But this was a great line, and I personally had the Spartacus, and I want to say the Captain Kidd, and I just loved them. And they glowed in the dark. They glowed in the dark. Can't go wrong with that either. And I think really the only thing about them that was kind of odd was their backs weren't painted. So they had these glow-in-the-dark skeleton fronts. Not front backs, fronts. And then their backs were just solid black. But that was kind of odd. But this really was a great toy line. And that brings us to number 1 on the list. And that... Oh, wait, hold on. I'm getting a transmission.
None of these seem to do what I want to do. Hey! What's up, Slim? Los here from the Big Retro Show, and I know that you're doing an episode on MotU style figures, and although what I want to show you now is not a MotU style figure, I wanted to talk to you today about one of my favorite toy lines, and that is Rambo, the Force of Freedom. So Rambo, the Force of Freedom was a toy line based on the cartoon of the same name. And of course, the cartoon was based on the excellent Rambo movies. Now, I was a big fan of Rambo back in the day, and never in my life would I have imagined, especially after watching Rambo First Blood Part 2, that they would make a cartoon and a toy line out of Rambo. But they did, and I am so glad that they did, because this is one of my favorite toys. I mean, it is not a MotU style figure, but I mean, he's buffed just like MotU, all the MotU action figures, and you know, he's got the scars to prove it, right? So these figures were not as small as the MotU style figures. They were actually a little bit taller, and they came with just a bunch of different weapons and guns. I mean, this one here comes with, you know, a bazooka. Well, actually, it's a rocket launcher. It comes with a huge gun that he used in First Blood Part 2. Comes with that big old knife that he used to use to dispatch his enemies or whatnot. And this was one that I remember having when I was a kid. I also used to have Colonel Troutman and General Warhawk. Both are also excellent figures, and both also come with a variety of different weapons. That's one of the big things about this toy line, is that the weapons that it came with were just expansive. There were so many of them, and that was one of the appeals of this toy line. So along with Rambo and Colonel Troutman, they also released a variety of different figures to reflect the characters in the cartoon. So there was Turbo, Cat, White Dragon, and there was also another version of Rambo that I used to also have, and it was called the Firepower Rambo. That was the Rambo, the Force of Freedom side of the toy line. There was also the enemy side, which was called the Savage. It was called the Savage Army. And as part of the Savage Army, there was General Warhawk, Sergeant Havoc, Black Dragon. I guess he was supposed to fight the White Dragon. There was Nomad, Gripper, and Mad Dog. Now, as a kid, I remember having General Warhawk and Mad Dog to fight Rambo and Colonel Troutman. So we didn't have a lot of money in my house, so I had to make do with just having 4 figures. And that was perfectly okay with me. It was enough for me to fall in love with this toy line. So this Rambo action figure, I bought it off of eBay for about 50 bucks. And the box is a little bit beaten up and it's got its wear and tear on it. But overall, I'm happy with it. I'm happy with the condition of it. I actually have this action figure. It is hanging up in my retro cave right next to a Rambo First Blood Part 2 poster. So I kind of have my little Rambo corner there. I'm a huge fan of Rambo, also a huge fan of MotU, and I'm also a huge fan of your channel, Slim. So thank you very much for having me on your show to talk a little bit about Rambo, the Force of Freedom, and one of my favorite toys. Back to you.
Well, I really appreciate you stopping by or sending a message by to let us know that. All right. And so we're now to number 1 on the list, and that is Black Star from 1983 by Galoob Toys. And this is another really unique case on this list, because Black Star was actually based on a 1981 animated series that was canceled. But then with the success of Masters of the Universe, it was kind of revived just in action figure form from 1983 all the way to 1985. And this was an amazing toy line. Talk about quality and just great, cool, unique characters. And I just absolutely hate to hear people call Black Star a Masters of the Universe knockoff, because that is just not the case. Because again, cartoon came first, Black Star was first, gosh darn it. Well, where was I? So this line it ran the gamut all the way from kind of the fantasy, science fiction-y kind of stuff and futuristic-y things. I think John Blackstar, honestly, I've never actually even seen the cartoon. I just remember the toys so well because I had a ton of them. But John Blackstar, from what I understand, was an astronaut who maybe ended up in a place he wasn't supposed to be, and voila, there's your show. And the creatures, the figures, the toys, they had all kinds of interesting little features, but not silly action features that would have annoyed me. Like, many of them had these kind of, not jewels, but kind of just a thing in their chest that was kind of a transparent kind of plastic. And then their back had a rolling thing that made it spark. So the sparks inside made their little chest things light up. Really unique and interesting. And not only did they all come with accessories and weapons, each figure came with a smaller figure. The good guys came with these little pink kind of Seven Dwarfs looking guys called Trobbits. And then the bad guys came with these multicolored demon guys called, ready for this? Demons. Man, I had too many of these figures to count. I know I've been kind of listing the figures on this list that I had, but I had a ton of Black Star, all the way from Black Star himself, which was unusual because I rarely bought good guy figures as a kid. I know, a little monster even then. But all the way to the main bad guy and all the stuff in between, even some mounts. But my favorite 2 figures in the line, first would be Black Star's mount, which was a cool green dragon-y guy with glowing teeth named Warlock. And then the other was called the Lava Lock, and it was this red, it kind of like a dragon man, but kind of very square and rock looking. So imagine kind of a volcano-y, rocky kind of guy. He was super cool, and he was one of the spark ones, and his body, or was it his head? It's been so long now, but it was kind of transparent-y too. So when you did the sparky thing, a lot lit up. Super cool. Love that toy line. Would love to see kind of a revival of that one as well, because I don't think many of my figures of those held up very well over the years. Man, I hope the Lava Lock is still around, because, man, cool stuff. And that's the whole list, but why don't we do an honorable mention? And I just realized I forgot to take notes on my honorable mention. So I'm just going to kind of freestyle it here. But basically, doing research for this episode, just recently I ran across a more modern, I want to say it was from the 90s, toy line called Troll Fighter. And I won't lie, I love me some treasure trolls. It might be kind of that goblin treasure troll kind of kinship we all feel, but I love treasure trolls in the 80s. Still love them now. But Troll Fighter, just imagine, were essentially He-Man, Masters of the Universe, 5.5 muscular style bodies with treasure troll heads. What more could you possibly want or need? Yeah. All right. Well, I guess that's going to do it. Please like, subscribe, comment, and remember, may your pants always be filled with marshmallows.